Good morning, boys and girls. How are you? We're getting ready to write chapter 3 of our mystery story this week, and you guys are doing an awesome job. You were able to correctly identify all 4 types of our characters last week. Our suspect, our victim, our witnesses, and our detectives. You guys did great. I'm so proud of you. Now, this week I'm going to introduce 2 kind of tricky vocabulary words that I want you to try out in your story. But I'm going to talk about them a little bit so it'll be easier for you to use them in your story. All right? Now, the first one I'm going to talk about is an alibi. Now, an alibi is an excuse not to be somewhere or do something. Okay, I'm going to say it again. An alibi is an excuse not to be somewhere or do something. Now, here's my example, okay? Let's say that I am a suspect. Mrs. Walker is a suspect, okay? And Puckett and Kiwi come over and they're talking to me and they think, well, Mrs. Walker, we think that you did it, okay? We think you took the painting. And I would say, well, no, Puckett, no, Kiwi, it wasn't me. I was over at my friend's house swimming. That would be my alibi. They would say, well, can you prove that? And I would say, yes, I can. You can go and talk to my friend. So they would do their detective work and they would drive over to my friend Diane's house and they would say, hello, can we talk to you for a minute? And Diane would say yes. And they would say, well, Mrs. Walker said she was swimming at your house the other day. Can you verify that for us? And then my friend Diane would say, well, yes. She was here from about 12 to 3 and we were swimming and just having a great time together. And that would help eliminate me as a suspect, because I couldn't have been stealing a painting if I was swimming in a pool. Now, another example would be maybe to go to a store, okay? So maybe Puckett and Kiwi, they weren't convinced. They said, well, after you went swimming, you still could have gone over to steal the painting. And I could have said, well, no, Puckett and Kiwi, I went to the grocery store and I picked up some chocolate chips to make cookies with my son. And they could say, well, can you prove that? And I would say yes. So Puckett and Kiwi could do their detective work and they could go to the grocery store. They could either talk to the manager who might say, well, yes, I remember Mrs. Walker getting chocolate chips because she's a short lady and she needed help to reach the chocolate chips. Or when you go in to a grocery store or when you leave the grocery store, there's that camera there, isn't it? That security camera that would record you entering and leaving the store. So that could be your alibi too. So that would eliminate me further as a suspect. Or another place to have an alibi would be a restaurant, boys and girls. Your characters could go and eat because they could either talk to the waiter or the waitress, or there's a receipt for your meal. So for example, if Puckett and Kiwi were still coming after me and still convinced that it was me that stole the painting, I could say, well, Puckett and Kiwi, no, after I went to the grocery store, I drove through McDonald's to get some dinner for my family, and I have this receipt here to prove it. You know, they give you that piece of paper, that receipt, and that has your time that you were at the restaurant on there. So then I would be eliminated 3 times as a suspect. So try and have your characters have an alibi, an excuse, a reason they could not have committed the crime because they were somewhere else or with someone else. All right? Now, the second thing I want you to try and use, which can be a little tricky, is a red herring. Okay, now I like this one because it has a silly name, a red herring. And people always ask me, Mrs. Walker, what does a fish have to do with a mystery story? Well, a red herring, it has an interesting way that it got its name into an element of a mystery story. So when America was first being discovered, boys and girls, and explorers were coming here, they needed to hunt for food. And wolves were just running around wild before America was settled with permanent settlements. So what the hunters would do is they would lay down these fish, boys and girls, these red herring. And a herring is a type of fish that has a very, very strong smell. Stinky, stinky fish. But wolves love it. So they would lay down these fish to distract the wolves. So the wolves would go eat the fish, and the hunters could go and hunt the deer. And that term, it just stuck. Because a red herring is when you try and add some confusion to the story. Okay? You're trying to throw the detectives off the case. You're trying to confuse them. You're trying to mislead them by giving them false information. So what you're doing, boys and girls, is you're laying down the fish to distract your wolves. All right, now here's what that looks like. An example, okay? So I'm Mrs. Walker, and I am the bad guy. I have the painting, and I need to lay down some fish to distract my wolves. Now, my wolves, they're the detectives, okay? That is Puckett and Kiwi. Okay, so I need to distract them because I have the painting, and there's only two places that I would put the painting, okay? I would either put it in my house, which is right behind me, it's right over there, or I would put it in my classroom because I'm a teacher. So let's say the real painting, the real Caravaggio, is right here in Mrs. Walker's house. And I don't want Puckett and Kiwi coming to my house and realizing that I have it, and they were right all along that I took it. So I would give them some false information. So I need to lay down some fish. So I would put that false painting. Okay, I loved how you guys all thought of that false painting. Genius. Genius idea right there. I would take the fake painting, the false painting, and I would leave it in my classroom. Okay, because my classroom already has my fingerprints all over it because I teach in there. Then I might leave a few other clues and some misleading evidence so Puckett and Kiwi would go to my classroom. They would go to my classroom at school and they would be searching that. That's the red herring. Laying down my fish, the fake painting, to distract my wolves, which are Puckett and Kiwi. Now, while they're over in my classroom, I'm taking the real painting from my house and I'm getting out of here. Okay, I got to get that painting far away from Puckett, far away from Kiwi. I might even leave the city. Okay, I don't know yet, but I've got to do something because they're hot on my trail and I need to distract them. So I want you to be thinking of how you could add this funny red herring, it just has a funny name, to your story. How you can lay down some fish to distract your wolves. Okay, so you're going to lay down your fish, that's your false evidence, to mislead your detectives, to distract your wolves. And your wolves are Puckett and Kiwi. So I want you to try. It can be tricky, but that doesn't mean we don't try. I want you to figure out a way to try and incorporate that into your story. And you know what? You know what we always do? We always eat some Swedish fish. Don't you love those? Swedish fish? Okay, that always reminds me of a red herring in a mystery story. You're laying down your fish to distract your wolves. All right? So I want you to have an awesome time thinking of ways that you can incorporate an alibi and a red herring into your story this week. That's going to require a lot of planning. So I want you to really use your time wisely. You've got Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. You definitely want to plan your chapter. Beginning, middle, end. How is that going to look? What are you going to do? Who are you going to interview? You're doing your detective work. You're gathering evidence. Okay, there's lots of places for them to talk to people and for alibis to be confirmed or not. And you can try laying down some of those false clues. Maybe try and do a little red herring work in there too. Right, so you guys have a great week, and I'll be talking to you soon, okay? Bye.